up, y'all? Hope you're doing good tonight. Tonight is some kind of anniversary. I forget exactly what happened on this date. Something a long time ago. Maybe you in the audience recall. But we're going to dive into history to get an idea of the big picture and understanding how the Big Nine is not a standalone event. It kind of fits within a big overall story that relates to various competing narratives that the establishment wanted to foist on the West for various reasons. And it was nothing, it was part of a bigger picture, you see. It fits into a bigger story about America, a bigger story about globalization. Is my mic coming in? I don't know why it's all the way down. It just turns all the way down like that sometimes. Hopefully that's a lot better. You guys can hear me good now. So we want to, first of all, get an insight into how wars actually go down, right? How war actually happens. What the real story of those big events are. Wars are not in the modern era fought for what people think. That's point number one. And we're going to rewind back to some older historical events. And this is a great article that I covered for many years. And it still exists. I had to do some digging because the algorithm doesn't work anymore. When we search the algorithm here, as you see, you will note that all of our options are mainstream things. The Statesman. Let's go back. We get Hoover Institute, BBC, Foreign Policy. Now this one's interesting because you'll notice that some of the websites say that this is a fake, far-fetched thing. You see this? False flags are usually far-fetched. But now, wait a minute, they exist right here, according to the U.S. Embassy and Consulate, and Russia does them. So they don't exist unless we want to say it's a foreign entity. So there you can see it's a contradiction. This is in-your-face contradiction. It doesn't exist, but it does when we want to roll it out. You see here. One website literally calls it mental illness. And if you scroll through the normie websites, they'll tell you that to even discuss this, one of these is actually like psychology. Here it is. Psychiatry sites. Fake flag and psyche and society. People are losing their mind. But wait a minute. According to the spies and the intelligence agents that work at the U.S. Embassy and the consulate in the U.K., Russia does them. I mean, they're just presuming that you're stupid. You see how this works. And most people, unfortunately, are pretty stupid. So, is this thing on? Is this thing on? Hello? I'll be here all week, folks. So we're talking about examples of this from history. Many of these will be probably new to some of you, even if you are well studied, because there are many of these events that are lesser known. And we're going to look at Servando Gonzalez's book as well. It's been many years since we dove into his great book, Psychological Warfare and the NWO. And it turns out the entire book is online. I would recommend buying the actual book, though. But there's some great appendices and lists of events, historical chronologies, that give us an insight into this anniversary of whatever event. I can't think of the event, but maybe you guys know what I'm thinking of. Well, a long time ago in 1931, Japanese troops set off a small pop on a train in 1931, and they blamed China. And this justified the invasion of Manchuria. This is known as the Mukden Incident, or the Manchurian Incident. The Tokyo International Tribunal found that several of the participants in this plan, including Hashimoto, have been on various occasions openly admitting their part in this plot, and that this was part of an attack. Now, usually these events occur to provoke a larger conflict. Not always, but sometimes. We know that in a lot of the texts we've covered, this is well known. It's admitted. For example, Miles Copeland in Game of Nations, the famous CIA operative, says that terrorists, or to use the phrase of Bush, the terrorists, he says they make wonderful tools. That's what CIA operative Miles Copeland says. And he would know because he was the handler and consultant to the Syrian government and to the Egyptian government throughout the Cold War. So a lot of his operations involved those types of things, using the terrorists that W talked about. One of the tiny mustache men admitted at the Nuremberg trials that he was under orders of the Gestapo and other tiny mustache operatives to begin to fake attacks and blame the Poles to justify the movement into Poland. And we know from Quigley's books as well that that was actually part of a British plan and strategy. It's called the dual policy appeasement plan, whereby the British government had a public policy of opposition and a private policy of fostering, supporting, and funding Tiny Mustache Man. They wanted him to go into Poland. And so that would tie in well with that. Number 3, Tiny Mustache Man General Franz Halder admitted that he and Göring set fire to the Parliament building, and this was blamed on a slow boy. They blamed it on a slow boy. This is known as the Reichstag event. People always said, no, it's not. That didn't happen. I think probably did. Number 4, Nikita Khrushchev admitted that the Soviet Union Red Army shelled a Russian village of Manila in 1939 and blamed it on Finland as a basis for launching a winter war against Finland. Then later, Yeltsin agreed that this was a true event. Of course, that's not believable, just because, Yeltsin was a Western asset, so that's kind of sus. But still, this is like, the point is that governments engage in this in history, right? It's not every time, right, a government necessarily. You could have private actors involved. You could have private intelligence firms involved. You could have corporate espionage, or conceivably a corporate false flag. Yes, I am aware of OKC. But we got to be careful, because a lot of that stuff, it's just not, it's too soft over here, right? We got to be careful. But this is really just mainline history that I'm pulling from here. Although I'm a little suspicious of anything that I hear Yeltsin saying, because he was completely a Western puppet. And really, he was put there, I think, with the aid of the Harvard crew, Clinton, Larry Summers, CIA, and all these people to loot Russia. That was really the purpose that Yeltsin served, was to help foster the looting of Russia. That actually led to the rise of Vlad, and then the booting out of certain of the oligarchs is what fostered a lot of the anti-Western sentiment against Vlad in the late 90s, early 2000s. And a lot of that actually plays into today. So today's Ukraine situation. And no, somebody was bitching because why are you saying that? Because Ukraine is the Tsar's secret police and you're confusing people. No, I'm just extemporaneously saying ridiculous words because we live in a freaking dystopia that's not my fault, where I can't have normal conversation like an adult. No, you're not. You're punished if you have normal adult conversations in this ridiculous society that we live in. Russian parliament and Vlad, together with apparently Gorbachev, admitted that Stalin ordered the secret police to execute 22,000 of the Polish army and blamed it on the tiny mustache man. British government admits that between 1946 and 1948, it attacked ships carrying people that attempted to flee certain events and seek refuge in Palestine. The British set up a fake group called the Defenders of Arab Palestine, and then this group claimed falsely responsibility for this event. And so, yeah, we shouldn't be surprised if you know the history of British intelligence as well, because Britain's version of the Big Nine event, which was 7/7, guess what? All of the same indicators as the Big Nine. And I was talking to somebody the other day who I thought, would know about all this stuff, and they were acting like, well, I've never even heard of what 7/7 is. I mean, have you never heard of Aswat and 7? So people have no idea what's going on. And the younger generation, even less idea of anything going on. But, I mean, I remember Fox News had John Loftus on to talk about how Rashid Aswat was a British intelligence asset. And nowadays you have to really dig to find those clips. I think I did find it on YouTube, amazingly. But that tells you a lot about the 7/7 event. And guess what? What's the key? As we all know, DRILLS, right? That's the key to how this kind of an operation would be run on the day of the Big Nine. You know, they nuked one of the biggest sites that was just a historical documentation site, historycommons.org. You know that site's been nuked. Why would you nuke a site that just collected the articles about the event? Well, I know why, but yeah, I mean, History Commons does. I think you can find it on Wayback, and I think I did a similar stream to what we're doing tonight 2 or 3 years ago on Rockfin, and I think I had to go to Wayback to find that. So there's that. Now, British intelligence, no stranger to fake flags. Number 7, a certain country admits that they operated a group in Egypt that engaged in events. You can read the article for yourself. Number 8, CIA admits that it hired Iranians to pose as communists to engage in pop in Iran in order to help turn the country against Mossadegh. We know about the whole history of Operation Ajax and Mossadegh. And, I mean, that was well known. The weird part is that was well known, but it wasn't declassified until pretty late, as many things are, right? I mean, they'll declassify this stuff like way late, when everybody already kind of knows it. It's in a bunch of the geopolitical books, and the historical books, and the spy books. And then it gets declassified. Then you're okay to okay, well, now it's okay to talk about it, and you're not a quote tinfoil hat person. But until the establishment says that you can talk about it, you're a tinfoil hat person, which is all ridiculous anyway. Number 9, the Turkish Prime Minister admitted that the Turk government carried out fake flag in 1955 on their consulate in Greece. This is interesting. So this is a Turk-Greek operation there in the 1950s to blame Greece
And this then justified anti-Greek violence by Turks. Number 10, the British Prime Minister admitted that the Secretary of Defense under he and Eisenhower had a plan in 57 to carry out these types of events on Syria and blame it on the Syrian government as a way to cause regime change. Oh, you mean like happened under old Barack Obama? We got to get Assad. Assad's a tyrant. He's killing his own people. Do you remember that? Remember the white helmets that George Clooney and all the Hollywood people championed? That was all the same type of number 10 thing there that you're seeing. A lot of these too get recycled. Remember the Nerd Stream pipeline that Cy Hirsch told us about? Do you remember that that was an old Cold War Reagan era CIA plan as well to disrupt Soviet pipelines? Do you remember that? When that came out? Reagan era. Yep, look at this. 1982, exactly. And when you read this, it's like, oh, that's exactly what happened not too long ago. Just recycle the plan. 1982, President Ronnie Reagan, the Gipper, approved a CIA plan to sabotage the economy of the Soviet Union through covert transfers of tech that contained malfunctions, such as software laden with triggers an explosion for a Siberian natural gas pipeline, according to memoirs. So this is an older model of CIA sabotage. This is Washington Post. I know it's a natural gas pipeline. But it's the same stuff, right? Same idea here. And yes, we all know that a big part of the Ukraine situation is who will provide energy to Europe. And by the way, wasn't that weird that we just watched The World Is Not Enough? And that's what The World Is Not Enough is about. And who's the villain? Evil, orthodox, femme fatale, Electra King, Sophie Marceau. Orthodox Christian villains trying to bring pipelines to Europe. Interesting. World Is Not Enough came out when? 1999. The pipeline explosion was one example of a cold-eyed economic warfare that would be engaged against the Soviet Union under William Casey. And wasn't he a trad cat? This is in the Gladio era of William Casey, right? And his, what did he call them? They call themselves the New Templars. This is so ridiculous. These insane trad cats. Isn't that right? Yeah, because that's in the... Yeah, well, he was the trad cat, and he would meet with JP2 all throughout the Cold War. Because as we saw, JP2 was a major CIA Cold War figure. And that's even admitted by the pro-CIA writers like John Kohler, whatever his name is, right? And, yeah, William Casey, interestingly, was like a Latin Mass trad cat, if I recall. Like he was a hardcore trad cat. As was William Colby, too. Both of them were. And where did he come from? What do you know? Fordham University. All of the best people come from Fordham, especially the best people in the Orthodox world who are helping to make the Orthodox world Skittles. They just happen to all come from Fordham. Wonder why? Well, it's because it's a Jesuit university. And who's the other? The Fordham named their law library after what's his face? The other CIA director under Obama. Brennan. But John Brennan left, I think, Catholicism, didn't he? to supposedly become a communist Muslim. Didn't he convert to Islam or something ridiculous? Let's see what does it say his religion is. Yep, Fordham University. Shocker. Look at that. And there's a lot of idiots that don't know anything about church history and theology, and they love all this Jesuit stuff. They go nuts with it, right? All the Seventh-day Adventists, they love this Jesuit stuff. But they're not told. I mean, they're crazy and they're kooks and they're quacks and they're dumb. But there's actually a little bit of truth in this. I mean, the Jesuits are, and have been since at least the Cold War, totally allied with or under the thumb of the CIA, and we know that from John Courtney Murray being one of the key pivot figures in the David Wimhoff book. But anyway, so, that Gladio book was really good because it focused on this whole period of the 80s and the trad cat ascendancy in the CIA, all these neocon trad cats at this time, these Cold Warriors. Anyway, so let's get back to our article, getting way off topic. Number 11 to 21. Okay, so now they're going to list a whole bunch at once. So let's see. Former Italian Prime Minister and Italian judge and the head of Italian counterintelligence. This has got to be something Gladio, right? This is Gladio. Let's see. This is very well cited, by the way. 1970s. It's got to be Gladio related. Let's see. Admit that NATO, with the help of the Pentagon and the CIA, carried out many pop. Right, y'all know the pop reference. I feel like I'm doing references all the time, and people have no idea what I'm referencing. But that's that dude that Jamie hit me to from Community. What's his name? Attitude? No. What's his name, Jamie? Jamie. Magnitude, that's his name. Y'all know Magnitude, right? It's a funny character on Community. And he just has a catchphrase, and it's pop. So that's my stand-in for, pop. With the help of the Pentagon, this is all Gladio, right? So Gladio plays a significant number in this person's list. They have 10 examples. And hopefully you guys remember this, right? I mean, Gladio wasn't just training a bunch of fascist Masonic groups, P2 cell people. It was training people in black ops, assassinations, popping, and fake flags, and mass bat, that stuff. I feel like I'm having to play charades. Like, I can't even talk anymore. I have to do effing charades to convey just history. I mean, this is so ridiculous. I notice these history channels, though, over here, they get like 1 million views. And we watched a couple of those history channel, not the history channel, but channels that are history oriented. They seem to get many views with no problems. But I'm sure they're approved, and I'm not approved. So, by the way, we got a lot of people tonight. Welcome, everybody. We got heading up towards 700 now. If you want to support the show, do so via the Super Chat function. Support my analysis there. We're getting into the history of what really begins major conflicts in regions. What's the purpose of fake flag events, and are they fictitious, or is there a deep history to fake flag events? If you want to support the show, you can via Streamlabs. Super chats are through Streamlabs now. And so if you're learning something, if you value the information that I give you, do that right there. You can send me small super chat questions, big ones. It's all appreciated. Don't be stingy. So Gladio, as we know, was the stay-behind units trained by the CIA. This doesn't mention Kissinger, but yeah, with the help of the Pentagon, the CIA. This is actually Kissinger's the one that really organized the whole structure of Gladio, not just in Italy, but throughout a lot of European countries in the case of a supposed Soviet invasion of Europe. But in order to really put some oomph behind their strategy, sometimes they engaged in fake flag events. And as one supposed whistleblower from Gladio said, we were told that we had to make moves against civilians, people, women, etc., because that would work well in the press. BBC, of course, did an entire special on Gladio. We've lectured through multiple texts that deal with Gladio. So Gladio was not restricted to Italy, though. Some people think, oh, that's an Italian thing. No, Europe-wide. And via Gladio, there were events in France, Belgium, Denmark, Germany, Greece, Netherlands, Norway, Portugal, UK. And keep in mind, this is largely kicked off in the phase of William Colby, the trad cat, going over to Rome and setting up the means by which the Vatican could benefit and the Christian Democratic Party in Italy could win, so that the Communist Soviet Party in Italy would not win the elections. That then turned into Paul Hellyer and William Donovan and Angleton's idea to fund Gladio and his black ops through the DRUG trade. So this gets really wild. And guess what? All of that ties into you boys over here in the families. This book, by the way, is really great. I forget which audience member suggested I read the John Davis Mafia Dynasty book. It's really good. There's entire chapters on Sammy the Bull, by the way. So the book focuses on not just history of the Mafia, but particularly on the Gambinos. So it's a really good history book. But do we not have history lovers? What's up? Yeah, Opus Dei, another front for this kind of stuff. I know we got some history lovers. Where are the super chatters at? Y'all don't want me to... What, do you want more voices? If I come on here and sing and talk like an idiot, I'll get like $300. But if I talk about real events, everybody's just tightwad, just stingy, just tight ass. Now, some of these fake events, fake flag events in Gladio included Turkish Prime Minister, Portugal, Pop, the Piazza Massacre in 1969, events in Turkey, Patiano in Italy, Brescia, train, Pop, reminiscent of 7/7, Istanbul, Madrid, a lot of Italian prime ministers. Man, this is not a time when you want to be an Italian prime minister. I mean, the 1960s and 70s and 80s. I mean, if you're an Italian prime minister, you might as well just be like, I'm out of here. I'm out. And I'm going to be assassinated right away. The Bologna event, also probably the most famous Gladio event. I think it's the Bologna event, 1980. The Brabant sniping, interesting, 1985. So remember, nobody at the time knew that this had anything to do with Gladio. It was just, it's another crazy event. Oh, it's the radicals, it's the extremists, it's the leftists, it's the communists, and the communists were the threat of the time, right? Then we get OBL, right? OBL is the new threat after into the Cold War. Oh, suddenly our ally, the freedom fighter OBL, again, literal ally, freedom fighter OBL, ally of America, like he's considered a hero in the 80s. I'm not joking. OBL was an American hero. Suddenly plastered everywhere as the mastermind of Big Nine. Let's go to number 22. 1960 American Senator George Smathers. I've never heard of this guy. George Smathers. This sounds like a boomer era comedian, doesn't it? Do you remember Smathers? He was so fun. Like the Smothers Brothers. Remember George Smathers? suggested the U.S. launch a fake flag on Guantanamo Bay to go after Castro. Now, there's quite a few that relate to Castro. I'm sure everybody's heard of Northwoods. Northwoods is one of the more famous. But yet again, we have many people who do not know about Northwoods, amazingly. Yeah, by the way, thank you for that, Orthodox boomer grandmother. I was planning to watch Day of the Jackal the other day, and I bought a used DVD, and the DVD didn't work. So I'll have to watch, I guess I'll just watch it online. But I was planning to watch it, and I think it relates to these kinds of intrigues as well. Number 23, State Department documents 1961 show that Joint Chiefs of Staff and other officials discussed pop a consulate in the Dominican Republic to justify moving into that country. However, these plans were not carried out. Yeah, some of these, again, like Northwoods, they didn't actually do. And, you know, we were speculating the other night. I haven't even looked into it, but I can guarantee you. Well, I know Ingdahl wrote about it at the time, but remember all that Coney stuff? Coney is another one of these. Coney 2012, dude. Who you voting for in the next election? You going to vote for Trump or Biden? Nah, bro. I'm still Coney 2012. I want to see Coney elected. By the way, Joseph Coney actually would be better than Joe Biden. Like a African warlord is like at least 2 or 3 rungs above Biden for like competency and getting stuff done. I mean, I'm gonna vote for Coney, bro. Coney 2012. Who you want for VP? Charles Taylor, Mugabe. I mean, how many more? Can we just stack it? Just stack the Congress and the Senate with warlords, bro. We get more done. We'd have a better country run by African warlords. Charles Taylor, Mugabe. How many more warlords are there? By the way, the whole history of the CIA in Africa is fascinating. Nobody knows that. Now, there's a great documentary that popped up. We got to cover on these history shows that pop up. They can somehow get millions of views talking about this controversial stuff. I just saw it the other day. And I think we covered this briefly on an old news clip we found. CIA in Angola. This, I think we covered this clip. Yeah, we covered, this one. This is it. But one of these documentaries popped up from that one channel. And now I can't find it. Let's see, I think it said CIA Angola, JFK. This stuff's fascinating when you get into it. I don't understand why people don't come over here and watch it. Does nobody want to learn this stuff? I'm just baffled. I guess everybody wants to watch idiots on TikTok. Anyway, I've got it saved in my to watch later, so we'll just watch it later. But we'll get deeper into that CIA operations in Africa. But don't you think, I mean, come on. Once we figure this all out, it's like, oh, Coney is a cover for AFRICOM. And then people don't even know what AFRICOM is. What's that? Is that a conspiracy? No, that's the Pentagon's plans for different continents. Right? And Coney was the Pentagon's plan for further expansion into Africa. All right, so let's move on past this. Where are we at now? I find that in my new studio here, and by the way, it's going to get cooler, right? We're going to have a neon thing back here. It's not going to be just me and my shadow. But I find that in these chairs, I just keep sinking. I don't know what the deal is. They're not uncomfortable, but I don't know. I'm just slumping. What you doing, slumping? Jamie? I don't know where she is. All right, next one. We're learning history class tonight. Number 24. U.S. Gov recently admitted that in 1962 they had the plan to pop some planes And this is Northwoods. It's got to be, right? Because this relates to Cuba. It looks like it. So here you go. I don't exist. You don't think Northwoods is a real document? It's right here. And this is a story, and then here it is. Yeah, this is Northwoods because you see L.L. Lemnitzer there. Lemnitzer is who was at one time Supreme Allied Commander of NATO, and he's the one that suggested this to the Kennedys because how would Lemnitzer know about it? Because he's running freaking Gladio over there. Duh. Right? This is right when Gladio was hot. Lemnitzer was Supreme Allied Commander of NATO. So he's a master of fake flags. And he says, hey, Kennedy brothers, let's do this. And the Kennedy brothers, to their credit, were like, no, let's not do that. That's crazy. But also people don't know that if you read the full Northwoods documents, it actually talks about having people on the ground ready to give to the news reporters the narrative. So the narrative's already planned out to give to the news reporters. And they even discuss radio-controlled planes with fake bodies that pop. We had a big event. Oh, it was Castro. And we got people out here debunking. They never even heard of Northwoods. They didn't even know it's real. But I also think that, I'm a little skeptical of all that Cuba stuff anyway, because there's a military base, a U.S. military base in Cuba, and we're supposed to be worried that, in other words, it's a convenient threat to have there. And then all these Hollywood people go and hang out with Castro, and Castro used to be he's in like a couple B movies as an extra, and he tried out for the Dodgers. I'm not joking. People don't believe when you say that. You say, hey, Castro tried out for the Dodgers as a pitcher, right? What? Yeah, he has an IMDb, right? What? Yeah, Chevy Chase goes and hangs out with him, right? Come on. That, to me, that's just all right, this is sus, but. So everybody knows about Northwoods. But Northwoods, you see, is very important, not just because of that, but because of the similarities to Big Nine. Radio-controlled planes, events, drones, perhaps, however you think Big Nine went down. Whatever hit the Pentagon. People on the ground ready to give the news story, right? This kind of stuff. But Northwoods is an absolutely 100% real document. Operation Ajax. That's the one that I mentioned to remove Mohammed Mossadegh, put the Shah of Iran in. That's the one we just saw mentioned, the Lavon affair. We probably can't talk about that. East German Stasi. This is a different website. Now this one, I don't know about this one. East German Stasi fake flag. During the Cold War, the East German Stasi deployed various Romeo spies. We know about that from. They even had a Romeo spy in NATO. That's in one of Mark's essays that he translated. Romeo spies are also called ravens. They sent to West German secretaries to seduce the NATO West German secretary ladies. So ravens and Romeos was up in there trying to touch butts and get some info. This honey trap mission was also a kind of fake flag. Several of the female West German civil servants believed that they were giving classified documents to peace groups. However, this is really going to the Stasi. Many right-wing radicals gave information to Soviets through a false flag. There's also fake flag recruitment. This is another type of thing where this is kind of more of a fake flag recruitment operation, and that's where you pose as another foreign government's intelligence agency to get information, or opposes another group to get information from people under false auspices. Yeah, we probably can't talk about that one either. So I don't know what this site. I'm not familiar with this website. Let's see what it is. It looks like decent information here. Familiar with a lot of these books. It looks kind of a corny website, though. I don't know, but remember, none of this exists except according to the U.S. Embassy and the U.K. Consulate, Russia. So it doesn't exist except that Russia does it. So just keep that in mind. You're crazy if you talk about it because it doesn't exist, but it does exist and Russians do it. Remember that. Also, Northwoods doesn't exist, but also it does exist. Moving on, let's see. Next up, U.S. DOD suggested that Castro was going to attack the U.S., so another one of these Castro stories. Number 27, NSA admits that it lied about the Gulf of Tonkin. And that's a famous fake flag event as well, because if you don't know, Jim Morrison's dad, Admiral Morrison, was commanding the ship in the Gulf of Tonkin fake flag event. I know that all you old school people out there, all the Dave McGowan people, we all know this, but a lot of dummies and a lot of normies, they don't even know this stuff. The snake in the lake, it is long, 7 miles. I got to work on a Jim Morrison impression, but it just occurred to me, why haven't I done more Jim Morrison impressions? And I'm trying to remember, what's that dumb song that he does about the snake in the lake, 7 miles? The West is the best. Let's see, 28. U.S. Congressional Committee admitted that CoIntelPro utilized provocateurs, agitprop, and fake flaggish events throughout from 50s to 70s. I wonder if that still goes on. Oh, you mean like what they've done to every idiot right-winger in the last 20 years as well? All the right-wingers that fall for the exact same stupid thing that all of the left-wingers fell for in 1950s to 1970s. Once the government, in other words, it doesn't matter whether the government leans left or leans right. They use the same tactics. So when the government was more conservative from the 1950s and 1970s, they used CoIntelPro against the civil rights groups, against the Black Panthers. Famously, Richard Aoki, right, was the FBI asset that helped take down the Black Panthers by radicalizing them. And all he had to do was convince them to march around with their rifles on their back. And this was enough to destroy them in the press. And that was Richard Aoki's job. And he did that perfectly. And this is well-known, famous stuff, right? Now, nowadays, the government is not at all run by conservatives or right-wingers. It's run by a bunch of lunatics. And they do the same methodologies. And I can't believe people don't know this. Like, this is so obvious. And I've been telling people for like 15 years to watch the Newburgh Sting, and nobody watches it, nobody cares, they don't listen to what you're saying. They think it's just like, why don't you go watch I think it's still on YouTube. And we've been talking about this since like 2013, Patrick Henningsen 21 Wire days, dude. We did boiler rooms on this like 10 years ago, dude. And nobody knows what Newberg's thing is. Maybe they took it down. I bet it's still here, though. Yep, still here. 10? No. That's the trailer. They used to have the whole documentary up. Now, people can't figure out why I would tell people to watch this documentary while also being against Muslims. And it's like, you can't, I mean, are you that dialectically dumb that you think that if I talk about entrapment, I therefore support Islam? I mean, this is so stupid. Maybe this is it. No, that's not it. Well, I guess they've taken down Newberg's sting because the whole thing was... The whole thing was online. Now it's not there. But you can find it online, I'm sure. And so basically, you can imagine what it is. FBI creates this ridiculous mosque. And they truck in this ridiculous con man character. And it's all over the top and obviously like fake Fed stuff, obvious, right? And you're like, why are you defending the Muslims? Because they use the same thing on you, dummies. Can you right-wingers are so stupid they can never figure this out. They're as dumb or dumber than left-wingers. Because left-wingers seem to figure out this stuff. Right-wingers don't figure it out. And then they end up frickin' in jail or whatever. So let's see the trailer. See if there's anything in the trailer here.
Bombs, and then they have 2 Stinger anti-aircraft missiles.
I mean, here's the dude. This is the Fed guy that they trucked in, and I think this guy was probably like a CIA guy actually, from Egypt or somewhere, and he basically got these impoverished, not very smart people to think that they were going to wage war on a local military base, right? As part of jihad. I mean, can you imagine believing that, being that dumb? And this fosters, I was right. Here he is, right here, this guy. The owner of the limo in this whole operation spent years entrapping people as a you-know-what. So why am I talking about this? Because this is the same model. Can people not figure that? It's the same model as T. McVeigh. It's obvious. Can you see the pattern? It's the same. All right. Hopefully that's evident to this audience. We have a high IQ audience. We're not a bunch of dummies over here, but I mean, if you go into the history of this, there's so many cases. It's so obvious. Like so many cases of this. And so what they do is they will find a mentally unstable person, right? And then they'll hype them up, ramp them up. Do you remember the Mumbai event? Right. The Mumbai event was the same type of thing. And if I remember, man, it seems like ages ago, but that was 2008. And Global Research had some really good stuff on that. But Global Research is super censored now. You can't. It's really hard to find. I mean, you can specifically put it in, but they don't come up in searches anymore. And why does this? Because this was India's Big Nine. India's Big Nine event, and you get into the history of that, and it's pretty much what you would expect. A made-up fake group called the Deccan Mujahideen. Who are the Mujahideen? The freedom fighters fighting the Soviets under Reagan and Carter and Brzezinski, the CIA created database. Hello? Can you figure it out yet? All right. Let's go back to this. Where are we at? So that was CoIntelPro. And you see what I'm saying is that CoIntelPro against leftists is no different than the CoIntelPro against the right-wingers today. And how many dumb right-wingers have fallen for this in the last 6-7 years? I mean, by the way, I was telling people have clipped it from my old live streams. And I was telling people that all you dumb right-wingers are going to fall for Fed ops, and a lot of you guys are going to end up in jail. Who was right? Number 29, a top Turk general burned down a mosque in Cyprus in the 1970s, blamed on the enemies. He said, in a special war, acts of sabotage are staged and blamed on them. This hypes up public resistance. We did this in Cyprus. We even burned down a mosque. So what, to blame it on Orthodox, I guess? German government admitted in 1978 that the German Secret Service detonated a pop outside of a prison and blamed the RAF. Oh yeah, Red Army faction, the Baader-Meinhof. That, you want to talk about a super fake, ridiculous group. Baader-Meinhof is another one of these. That's Germany's basically, like if you live in the West or in America, right? An actual tiny mustache man group obviously is a bunch of ridiculous feds or run by feds, right? So Baader-Meinhof is like the communist version of that in Germany. Super, super fake. The guy who created the group, went from being a radical communist to being like this super right-wing fascist. I mean, obviously just changing his position every few years, like total, Fed intelligence thing. And, another example of this would be this type of thing. The crazy radical occult group, the Order of Nine Angles, the guy that created that, David, what's his name? Shocker. Changes his position every few years. Obvious creation. Obvious. I mean, how can people not see this? Y'all know what I'm talking about, right? I forget that guy's name. David something. I mean, you go to his Wikipedia. It's it even tells you on the Wikipedia, conveniently identifying for you. Yes, this man is a former Fed. Yeah, I want to get in his group. I'm sure he's really going to change things for the better. Right, so this is like a satanic group. I'm trying to remember that guy's name, though. David. What's the guy's name? I know you guys know. David Miles, is that his name? Can somebody help me out remember that guy's name? I can't remember his name. We got a bunch of really smart people in our chat. Jarrett, it doesn't sound like any of these people. David Myatt, here it is. This guy. I mean, look at this dude. Oh, I worship tiny mustache man. Oh, wait, but now I'm a Sufi. Yeah, okay, sure. Oh, now I'm going to become a tiny mustache man follower. Now I'm a Satanist. Oh, wait, now I'm a Siddhartha Buddhist. I mean, it's just ridiculous. These kinds of people. And what did he do? Oh, his father worked for the British government as a silver star. Oh, yeah, interesting. Nothing to see there, I'm sure. Spent time in a Buddhist and then a Christian monastery. Nothing to see there. No, nothing suspicious. Attends a UNESCO conference. and he becomes the leading tiny mustache man intellectual in Britain. I mean, dude, come on. If you can't see that this is obvious, like, Fed stuff, come on, right? Give me a break. But Baader-Meinhof is another overlooked radical organization with all these same kinds of marks. And I remember when I was taking my German classes in college, my undergrad, I took 2 years of German, and then I also took German history, German culture classes as well. Just found that to be the most interesting thing at my university. If you do undergrad, you got to pick something like that, right? But if you go into the history of this group, they're really interesting. And like I said, the guy behind it is obviously, some kind of spook, right? I mean, there's just no way about it. But I mean, you can't pull up good articles on it because it's going to be, it's all this normie shit is all that comes up anymore. It's so stupid. Basically, Google doesn't work anymore. I bet Global Research has a good article on it. Let's see. They won't even pull up anything on it. I remember like 10 years ago, Patrick sent me a really good article on this guy because I did a podcast on this. And the guy behind it, Ulrich, is that his name? Ulrich? Let's see if we can look up Ulrich Meinhof. Ulrich Meinhof. Now watch. You're going to notice these radical pivots, if I remember. Because he's a Maoist. Oh, I'm a Maoist. But then at some point, I think he becomes like some far right person. Student activism. You see how annoying this is that, I mean, if this was Google 10 years ago, Horst Mahler. There's a point where this guy goes like super right wing. I remember it. And if this was 10 years ago, I could pull up all of the articles that I'm looking for. But, I mean, they literally buried all of the information they used to be able to. This just pisses me off when I start looking for shit I can't find. Makes me mad. Thank you for destroying the internet. Good job. Number 31. Is this Victor Ostrowski? Which I've read his book, by the way. Yep. So if you've read Victor Ostrowski's book, By Way of Deception, this admits in 1984, a certain group involved in something with Gaddafi. Number 32. South African Truth Reconciliation Council found that the South African Defense Force tried to get somebody to pop to discredit the ANC. That doesn't mean I like the ANC. So, number 33, Algerian diplomat. The Algerian army admitted that in 1990s they engaged in the massacre of Algerian civilians, and they blamed Islamic militants. So you understand that this is a common thing. You can't just assume that whoever's doing it or not doing it is good guy, bad guy, right? In global geopolitics, it's not good guy, bad guy. It's how do we convince the population or the target audience that we're the good guys and whoever we don't like is the bad guys. You see, that's different than who's the good guy, who's the bad guy. But the public is not sophisticated, and they don't think in this way, and they don't think of their government engaging in these kinds of activities, and so they're none the wiser. 1994, U.S. Army Special Forces Defense Tactics and Techniques Procedure recommends employing TERROR. I think this is the manual that's mentioned. Was it WikiLeaks manual? Yeah, and I think this comes up in The David Price book, Weaponized Anthropology that we covered. Fake flag events are carried out in Latin America as part of the CIA's Dirty Wars. I have that book over there, Dirty Wars. Yep. Don't exist. 35. Indonesian fact-finding mission found that the team investigated riots which occurred in 1998, and that the military had been involved in provoking these riots. Number 36. Senior Russian military and intelligence officers admit that the KGB was involved in the apartment pop in 1999. This had to do with the Chechnya event. You probably heard about that. That's a one that's mentioned often. Number 37, Washington Post. Indonesian police admit that an Indonesian military killed American teachers in Papua in 2002. 38. The well-respected former Indonesian president admitted that the existing government had a role in the Bali pop. As reported by BBC, New York Times, and Associated Press, number 39, the Macedonian officials admit that the government went after and eliminated 7 immigrants and claimed they were Al-Qaeda. 40. Senior police officials in Genoa, Italy admit that in 2001, at the G8 summit, they planted Molotov things and faked an officer being stabbed to justify the crackdown. I remember those. Well, a lot of those G8 protests have had weird events happen. Maybe not. I don't remember 2001, but some of those later ones that people like Luke Rudowski went to, right? They had some strange things going on. Number 41, the U.S. blamed Iraq for being a participant in the Big Nine. And everybody knows that's not true. You just blame all the people that you want to move into their country to appropriate resources for global American empire. Number 42, FBI admits that the ANTHRAX events were carried out by one or more U.S. officials, government scientists. Yes, exactly. As we said as tinfoil hat people many years. I mean, I learned this in 2003. And you know how many times I've been told, even by family members, how evil and mean and awful I am? How dare you? How dare you? How dare you? Right, that's what Bill Clinton said to Luke Rudowski. How dare you? Well, it's admitted. And the officials were told to blame Osama. The Bush administration then tried to link ANTHRAX to Iraq. 43. Former Department of Justice lawyer John Yoo, remember he's the one that was saying that it's time to do TORTURE, rendition, waterboarding, and all that. That was John Yoo. Suggested that the U.S. should go on the offensive against Al-Qaeda and have our intelligence agencies create fake terror groups. Oh, you mean like we already did? You mean like Al-Qaeda? Exactly. Number 44, UPI reported in 2005 that the insurgents in Iraq are using Berettas. The serial numbers on the Berettas means that they were shipped, basically comes from the CIA. Shocker. Exactly. 45. Can't discuss that one. 46. Quebec. 2007. Thugs carried rocks to a protest, but they were actually undercover Quebec police officers. Yeah, police do that all the time. 47. The G20 protests in London in 2009. This is what I was thinking of. 2009. British member of Parliament said plainclothes police officers were attempting to incite the crowd to violence. Oh, you mean like might have happened recently, but that doesn't exist? Like might have happened in D.C., but that doesn't exist. Even though British members of parliament admit that law enforcement and officials place provocateurs in crowds to rile them up. 48. Egyptian politicians admit that the government employees looted priceless museum artifacts in 2011 to discredit protesters. So now it's getting into a lot of examples of like undercover provocateurs. 49. Colombian army admitted that its unit went after 57 civilians dressed in uniforms, claiming they were rebels. 50. The highly respected writer for The Telegraph, Ambrose Evans Pritchard, says that the head of the Saudi intelligence network, Prince Bandar, admitted that the Saudi government controls the Chechen, terrorists. 51, high level, because they're used against Russia. High level American sources admit that Turkish government and a fellow NATO country carried out the chem weapon event blamed on Assad. I think we covered that at the time with Patrick. Let's see which event they're talking about. I mean, it's got to be, right? Well, I want to know about the Turkish event. What's the Turkish event? No, that's former Ukrainian security chief admits that the SNIPER events that kicked off Maidan coup were carried out. Yeah, I've referenced this tons of times. The Ukraine sniper. They covered that very well on Global Research, by the way. But I'm trying to figure out if this is this Assad that they're talking about? Here we go. Leaked a couple weeks ago. So all these articles don't exist anymore. They're all gone. But, I mean, it's got to be Assad, right? Let's see. 53. British intelligence admitted that they carried out a digital fake flag, framing people and writing offensive and lewd material and comments. Lord Voldemort covered that a couple days ago. And, of course, also that article is gone. So there is, and by the way, there's many, many more. This doesn't even mention the sinking of the Lusitania, which I was going to mention. Did it even mention? I don't think it did. So if you want to read this article here, you can. It's an old school classic article. Here you go. This is an older Guardian article on Gladio. And let's see, what did I want to move to next? Okay. Next, the book I recommend that we covered many years ago. I haven't covered it in a long time because it's a great book, and it really should be read in toto. But it is the great book by Servando Gonzalez called Psychological Warfare in the NWO. And Servando is one of the few people that writes on, big scale geopolitical stuff and understands that it's not just, you get this kind of libertarian approach to these questions of like, they just want to take away our freedoms. And it's like, no, they want to do a lot more than that, dude. They don't just want to take away your freedom. And there's also a spiritual war at work. And so Servando is great for understanding that there's a longer game at work here, which also intended to overthrow, throne, and alter. And he understands that. So I've always been impressed because hardly anybody in this domain would be so bold as to say that, other than myself and a few others. So he understands it very well. And he's also very competent in going back to World War One, going to the inquiry. I first learned about the inquiry from Servando's book. And then he goes into the OSS as its successor, and then the CIA as its successor. So we're going to look at his little chronology of treason list here. And you'll notice that, what do you know, it lines up very well with Quigley's chronology, and it lines up very well with the Milner-Fabian chronology in Ratiu's book that we've covered. And he mentions all of the things you hear me mention. He mentions the Fabians and all that. So let's get to the first. I should do this like this. Full screen would be better for this. Like this. Let me scoot it over. There we go. Now we can see it. So there is a weird version of the book here here online. But I highly recommend just going and reading, getting this actual book. It's worth having. It's one of the better books in this field. So, if you wanted the information that's in Tragedy and Hope, that's in Anglo-American Establishment, that's in the Milner-Fabian book, but in a smaller kind of scaled down, right? This is the book you would want. And once I tell everybody this, it'll be sold out. So you better if you're going to get it, you better get it now, because if it's not sold out, it's about to be. Looks like it is already sold out. So sorry, guys. Well, you can buy one paperback for $50. So guess where I got this book? A lot of y'all won't know this, but so one of the more famous staples of Austin was Brave New Books. And back in the day, Lord Voldemort used to do a lot of presentations, talks. He would pop up at Brave New Books. It was a famous, conspiracy bookstore in Austin. And it was like a little, like you go down the stairs in this back alley. And it's like this underground, cool bookstore, and it was literally underground. It's a pretty cool place. I was able to go there in 2016, right before it finally went out of business. And if you remember the old school conspiracy stuff, everybody's heard of Brave New Books. But I'm pretty sure that so they closed. And I'll show you some pictures of it if there's any pictures. That's the outside of it. But you go downstairs. So it's not on the left. It's that little thing on the right. And you walk down the stairs to this basement. Right? And this, can y'all see? Yeah. So in this basement down here, you go in that back room. And there's like a whole, like a stage with like a place to do movie premieres. It was a pretty cool place. It was a genuinely neat, local flavor kind of place. Anyway, they shut down in 2018 or so, 19, and they had one copy of Psychological Warfare in the New World, and so I bought it right away. So, sorry. I got one of the last copies. Lost my place. Here we go. All right, so let's get to Servando's list of his chronology of how things got bad. And you'll notice it lines up with a lot of what we're talking about. And this will give us the big context for the list of the fake flags that we just went through, as well as the anniversary of today's thing, which I can't remember what it is, but I'm sure you guys can recall. Today is a very important day. It's an anniversary for some big event. Today, every act of treason that is committed against this country typically originates from members of the CFR. That is correct, and that is something that we find in all of our books on this topic. By the way, one of the classics on this topic we haven't done yet, which we can do on YouTube, would be this book. So we'll probably do this one in the coming future as well. We've done 2 Sutton books. Yeah, we've done 2 Sutton books, basically. We've done Wall Street, the Bolshevik Revolution, and we've done the book that he co-wrote with Patrick Wood on technocracy and the CFR. But we've not done the history of Skull and Bones. And that's where we get the OSS and the CIA from. 1891, Cecil Rhodes. So he goes back to the Quigley material. That is also what we find in the Milner-Fabian history. Cecil Rhodes establishes his secret circle called the Circle of Initiates. This is from Anglo-American Establishment of Quigley. It's also in Cecil Rhodes's Will and Testament, which I have. I bought that. You've probably heard Richard Grove cover it for many years. I went ahead and bought a copy of it. And it also comes up in like mainline biographies of Cecil Rhodes as well. 1909, Lord Milner, an agent of Ralph and a trustee of the Rhodes' fortune, creates the outer circle to the circle of the initiates. That's the inner party, outer party. He calls this the Association of Helpers. This becomes titled the Round Table Group. Did you think I was just making all this stuff up? It's in all these books. Woodrow Wilson and his advisor, Colonel Edwin Mandell House, illegally create the Federal Reserve Bank and the other 3-letter thing. And this will be a private organization, or it's basically a private bank masquerading as public. 1919, the Round Table Groups are later transformed by Colonel Edwin Mandell House, John Maynard Keynes, Fabian socialist, Arnold Toynbee, also socialist, and John Foster Dulles, as well as many others, into the Institute of International Affairs. That will become in England, the Royal Institute for International Affairs, the Royal Society's Institute for International Affairs. 1919, President Wilson, Colonel Edwin Mandell House, and many Wall Street elites create the League of Nations. You might have heard of that as the answer to World War I and its problems. So we're going to have world government to no longer have world wars, you see. The U.S. Senate refuses to approve the League of Nations because it's a threat to U.S. sovereignty. That was the reason why they didn't approve it. Oh, it's not a threat anymore, though. Don't worry. 1921, they decide to break down the Institute of International Affairs and create an American branch based on the RIIA in England, and they call it the CFR, the Council on Foreign Relations, and its matching British branch, the Royal Institute for International Affairs. 1922, Council on Foreign Relations begins to publish its official magazine, Foreign Affairs. And I have several issues of Foreign Affairs, even going back many years, but Richard Grove actually has like a giant collection of very telling old issues of Foreign Affairs. So Richard's got me beat on old backlog Foreign Affairs. And all those old backlog Foreign Affairs, by the way, they admit everything. So those are also very valuable to have. Many years later, the magazine is a kind of crystal ball forecasting the direct plans and direction that the U.S. intends to go now that the U.S. is basically a captured and controlled entity by these people. That's why Richard has them. It's very good. 1924, Wall Street panic, Great Depression, collapse, stock market. That's engineered by Federal Reserve, created and or connected people. Quigley basically says the boom-bust cycle is manipulated. 1941, Secretary of War Henry Stimson of the CFR tells Roosevelt of the CFR to maneuver the Japan to engage in what we could basically call as a kind of fake flag event. So Pearl H. I'm not talking about pearly things. I'm talking about Pearly Harbor things, right? This then pushes the American public into fight a war. Then he skips to, let's see, Prescott Bush, who was CFR, I don't know what that 321 means. Prescott Bush, Henry Ford, also in the CFR, Nelson Rockefeller in the CFR, Allen Dulles, CFR, cut many business deals with German corporations that helps to pave the way for the Tiny Mustache Man's war machine. All of these people build up Tiny Mustache Man. And that course, because the same people they're working with in Britain are engaged in the dual appeasement plan and also aiding Tiny Mustache Man. 1945, U.S. delegation to San Francisco. They create a conference where the United Nations is announced. 47 CFR members create the UN, exactly what is in this book, including individuals like John Foster Dulles, Nelson Rockefeller. That's the relative of Allen Dulles of the CIA. Aldrich Hiss and others. The Charter of the United Nations says that they are approved, and it was written by individuals from Pratt House in Manhattan, which is the Council on Foreign Relations headquarters. Where does the UN come from? Its charter is written by Pratt House CFR individuals. 1945, Secretary of State Edward Stettinius, CFR. Secretary of War Henry Stimson, CFR. General George Marshall, CFR. President Truman, not CFR, orders the dropping of pop. After the war, the Rockefellers and the CFR, together with Allen Dulles, then bring over many of the paper clips. This is the Galen organization that I just covered on the last stream, Galen org. And no, it doesn't mean that they're all Tiny Mustache Men followers. They're above that. That's the point. 1946, Rockefeller CFR donate the land to create and build the UN superstructure, the UN building. Rockefeller family donates the land. 1947, writing under the pseudonym X, George Kennan of the CFR writes his article for his theory of containment. This will begin Cold War. This and Stalin not accepting the Marshall Plan aid, Cold War. So this is something that was intentionally kicked off. 1947, Truman signs the law into creating the National Security Council and the CIA out of the OSS. 1948, George Marshall and Dean Acheson of the CFR. President Truman attempt to stop providing military supplies to Chiang Kai-shek. This allows the communists to take over. Now, what's not mentioned in here is that Mao was a Yali. That means Yale in China. And people don't know that it's actually in Yale's magazine that Mao was brought to power. Yale News, Yale Group spurs Mao's emergence. Yes, it's a real article. Yes, it's real. It's right there. And you want the link? I'm going to give it to you. Yes, you can have it. What? Why would Yale? Why would they do that? Well, I don't get it. It don't make no sense. What? Yale Group spurs Mao's emergence. Mao was a Yale in China student. Yali. And yes, it's real. Wait a minute, you're saying that the OSS and CIA trained Mao's guerrillas and stopped funding Chiang Kai-shek. Yeah, exactly. It's exactly what I'm saying. Because that's what actually happened. But that's not even in the Servando Gonzalez book. It goes even deeper. That's declassified on the CIA website. Bill Donovan, train Mao guerrilla. I mention this and people who don't believe it. Now here's a mainline article, American Intelligence Journal. The OSS in support of the Chinese communists. It's in Bill Donovan's biography. It's not even controversial. But it's actually also at the CIA's website. There's pictures of Donovan training Mao's guerrillas. Let's see if it's on here. No, that's not it. No, that's not it. I remember exactly what it looks like. They have pictures of him training the people. Maybe I should look under images. No, that's not it. Anyway, it's well known. I actually have it in other videos. So if you can't find it here, it's in other videos I've done. You can go back and find them. But yes, while Bill Donovan trained Mao's guerrillas. Oh, let's try that. OSS trains Mao's guerrillas. Oh, is this it? They used to have it. This makes me so mad. They used to have it like easily accessible on the website, showing where Bill Donovan had trained Mao's guerrillas. Anyway, it's well known. It's in tons of books, so you can take my word for it. But whoever wrote this intelligence paper here knows about it. It's right here. No nation in the world is caught the fancy historians like China, blah, blah, blah. Studies foreign policy, the end of the Mao era, blah, blah, blah. Less known are the many events in our more distant history in which intelligence organs dabbled in foreign policy without the encouragement of political leaders. This is investigation into, yeah, well, you get the point. This is well known. All right. Moving on to that's why David Rockefeller writes the papers or the essays in favor of Mao. Like, people are mystified by this. They can't understand it. It's like, it's because it's a lie. It's manipulation and deception. David Rockefeller is a huge fan of communism and socialism. He always has been. And he understands that he doesn't care if he's taught by Harold Lasky and Fabian Socialists, and if he also studies under von Hayek and writes a thesis under von Hayek and thinks he's into libertarian economics as well, because he sees them as both useful. They rise above the dialectic of Austrian economics and capitalism, and socialism. Let's see. 1949, the American Committee on Europe is established. That plays a big role in this, because that's actually where the EU comes from. The EU is an American project. It's not actually a Tiny Mustache Man project. I don't know where people mistakenly think that Tiny Mustache Man created the EU. He had a plan for something like that, but that's not what happened after World War II. Uncle Sam went in there and re-educated the Germans. Literally set up re-education camps. Did you know that? It's in the Ratio book. Let's see. And that's what's talking about this American Committee on United Europe. The American Committee on United Europe, 1949, is the beginning of the EU, dum-dums. Bill Donovan is its chairman. OSS chairman. Who's the vice chairman? Alan Dulles, future head of the CIA. 1949, it's headed by Frank Wisner. What did Frank Wisner do? What did we just cover, boys and girls? Mockingbird. Alan Dulles, Richard Helms. CIA Operation Mockingbird. I have the Mockingbird book right over there. Control media, control journalists, control all of the news. So, do you understand that 1949, after they had set up these globalist entities, they were already buying up and controlling the news media in the 1940s. Many years later, the CIA admits to having recruited more than 400 influential journalists across 25 major media organizations. And that's across the world, by the way. That's not just in America. 1950, testifying before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Warburg, CFR, founder Paul Warburg. We will have world government whether you want it or not, by conquest or consent. Interesting, because that sounds exactly like what Christian Rakovsky says, doesn't he? It's just like the Rakovsky interrogation. 1950, after a containment doctrine of George Kennan, Dean Acheson of the CFR, Dean Rusk of the CFR arranged the no-win undeclared war in Korea and the removal of Douglas MacArthur. General MacArthur was not a CFR member and had a plan to actually win the war, so he was not a good guy. Also, I think Patton figured things out too, right? Smedley Butler figured things out. All these generals that start to figure things out basically get destroyed or assassinated, by the way. 1950, Joseph McCarthy exposes the treasonous activities of the State Department. Alger Hiss, Owen Lattimore. So this is a bunch of CFR people who are outright communists, right? The other ones aren't outright Soviets or communists. A bunch of them are Fabians. And that's what MacArthur couldn't figure out, because they didn't know. We got to give them some leniency here. Like, we got to grant some, like, nobody could fathom how big this was in the 1950s and 60s, right? Because who's going to be reading Quigley's book? Not very many people, right? And that comes out in the 60s. So you got to be reading like these hardcore CIA manuals to be knowing this stuff, or you got to be recruited into the CFR. Otherwise, nobody in the 1960s is going to believe this. They're going to believe the mainline story that it's Moscow's communists everywhere. No, it's not Moscow's communists everywhere. Moscow is an entity that could not have existed as a Soviet communist entity without the support of the West. So wait a minute. It's the people in the CFR calling the shots, you see. And McCarthy actually began later on to start to figure that out. And this actually birthed the John Birch Society. And the John Birch Society comes from General, what's-his-face? Alex met him. Had long talks with him. Is it General Benton K. Pardon? I forget his name. Dolly Parton. I forget how to spell his name. What's a lot of people don't even know what the John Birch. I talk to people and they're like, what's the John Birch Society? They don't even know what it is. Now the John Birch Society, I'm not saying that today's John Birch Society is like, but what I'm saying is like the original people that were working there, they started figuring out that, hey, wait a minute, seems like a lot of these really wealthy people in America are communists, right? So they were buying into the Cold War stuff, right? But then some of the people in it, Robert Welch, no, I'm trying to think of another guy. There's a general that Alex has met with before he died, a long time ago. He tells this story all the time, right?
I met with General Ben K. Parton, and he told me, folks, it's the wealthiest people they want to create communism, socialism. It's the rich people, okay?
Right, Alex tells the story all the time. That's what explains this, you see. Do you understand? Why can people not understand this? I don't know. It's in all the literature, but people can't understand it. Does anybody in the chat know what I'm talking about? Some of these older famous, a lot of you old military people and military historians, you'll know who General Benton K. Parton is. If you're an old time Voldemort listener, you'll know that Alex has told this story many times. And the story is that he went and interviewed and had dinner with this general or whatever, and this is like 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And he was saying they're going to create a form of communism technocracy in America, and it's basically the wealthy elite behind it. It's not Moscow and, street level idiot Marxists that are running all this. Let's see. 1950, McCarthy starts to figure out that there's actual communists in the government, but he doesn't understand like the Fabian element. 1953, Soviet Prime Minister Khrushchev declares the doctrine of peaceful coexistence. Suddenly, there will be a rapport between capitalism and communism. This causes consternation amongst the ranks of the American military, industrial complex, and Wall Street. 1956, Hoover, who is director of the FBI, receives hundreds of letters from citizens, and they are figuring out that the CFR is treasonous in promoting communism. But that's only half the picture. They're not understanding. I mean, the people are starting to catch on, but they're all propagandized with the Cold War story, which is psyops, right? They're not understanding it's the rich people in the West. Okay? It's not Moscow. Moscow's like a front for this stuff, is what I'm trying to say. That doesn't make Hoover a good guy either, by the way. Foreign relations... Hoover begins to investigate. Soon after this, Eisenhower dictates an order prohibiting the FBI from investigating the government. So they didn't want Hoover going too far with that. 1957, journalist Herbert Matthews of the CFR interviews Castro in Cuba's Sierra Maestra Mountains. And part of this is why Servando Gonzalez theorizes that Castro might actually be CFR, because if he's an actual threat, then how are all of these high-level CFR people going to interview him? Remember when Anderson Cooper go and investigate or interview OBL, right? So he's wanted. Nobody can find him, but Anderson Cooper can go and interview him. I mean, come on. So that leads Servando to theorize that Castro might be an allowed communist threat in Cuba. In the interview that is published in the New York Times in 1957, Matthews describes Fidel Castro as a Cuban Robin Hood, a Simon Bolivar, a lover of democracy and justice. The New York Times chairman of the board, Arthur Schultzberger, is CFR, and Orville Dreyfus are also CFR in the 1950s. So basically, New York Times promoting communism. 1958, John Foster Dulles and Allen Dulles of the Eisenhower administration betrayed Cuba's President Batista by confiscating the arms. So basically saying that people were helping Castro. Did you know Castro guarded the Angolan oil fields for the Rockefellers, which is another sus thing. Am I remembering that right? Yes. A lot of people don't know this stuff. Of course, that'll never come. I don't even know why I search this stuff anymore. It's not going to come up. So, Castro guards oil fields. Some people say too. There was a really intelligent person years ago when I was going deep into this and Servando's theories on Castro, and he actually had an interesting argument that Che was a legit communist. Not that he was a good guy, but that he actually believed it. But that Castro was a phony, and that Castro, I think, his idea was that Castro had some role in Che getting killed or betrayed or something like that. So I think that it comes up in this book. Let me search this book really quick because really Servando, to my knowledge, is the only person that's even really written. He's published many books questioning the whole Castro thing. Let's see if he talks about oil fields. Castro. Does anybody in the chat remember this? Standard Oil. That's it. Here it is. Castro and the CIA collaborated in destabilizing the Salvador Allende government. The CIA painted him as a radical leftist, and Castro openly criticized him for not being radical enough. Moreover, recent information has surfaced. Allende did not commit suicide. His Cuban security chief, General Patricio de la Guarda, took him out following Castro's orders. And then this is that Castro was guarding Standard Oil's oil fields. Isn't that right? Isn't that what it is? Let's see. This is a footnote, but I can't tell. 57. Chapter 2. I know this is a little boring, but this is actually worth it if we can find this and see what his source was for that. So there's giant chunks missing in this Goofus's upload here, where he didn't upload the whole book. So anyway, if you have the book, it's chapter 2. It's like footnotes 57 or whatever. Does anybody know this? The oil fields? I want to say it's the Angolan oil fields, and that Standard Oil had something to do with that, and Castro was guarding the oil fields for Standard Oil. That's crazy. I think that's right, but let's see. Moving on. Now we're going to get into some mafia stuff. 1958, State Department official William Wyland, protege of CFR people, undermines Batista, CIA station chief in Havana, and the American consul in Cuba, also a CIA officer, provide Castro with money. Interesting. And weapons and ammo smuggled from the U.S. military base in Guantanamo. Following the advice of John Foster Dulles and CIA Director Allen Dulles' brother, Eisenhower sends William Pauley to Havana. Pauley informs Batista that the U.S. government will no longer support him. If you watch Godfather 2, this is Godfather 2, right? When Michael's in Cuba and he has to leave when the revolution happens, it's when they get rid of Batista. Batista leaves January 1st, 1959, soon after Castro assumes control, bringing with a long tradition. The U.S. is the first country to recognize the Cuba. Okay, so this is his whole like Castro theory stuff. Right? Like, why would they immediately recognize the new communist government? Right? Castro makes his first official visit to the U.S. 1959. He speaks at Pratt House. What? 1959, Castro goes and speaks at the CFR. That's crazy. U.S. press does not report on this. Of course not, because the press is controlled. 1960, the conspirators, to their surprise, Joseph Kennedy, with the help of friends in the mafia, buy thousands of votes and get JFK elected, who is not a CFR member. Interesting. 1960, in the farewell speech, Ike alerts the nation about the military-industrial complex. We all know about that. 1960, 50th anniversary of the UN. Fidel Castro goes to New York, where he makes a long speech. He's the threat up, but he's flying to New York and making all these speeches. Give me a break. Later, he is the guest of honor at the Rockefeller Mansion in Manhattan. Oh, well, maybe this is why he starts to guard the oil fields. There at Pratt House, Castro has a long, friendly, private exchange with David Rockefeller and the other Wall Street elites. 1960, French freighter fake flag event that aids Castro. Kennedy then inherits from Eisenhower a plan for Cuba. The designated landing point is Trinidad. This is Operation Mongoose and the anti-Cuban Bay of Pigs stuff, right? 1961, following the advice of McGeorge Bundy of the CFR and Adlai Stevenson of the CFR, John McCloy of the CFR, JFK orders a change in the invasion landing point, and this basically means the Bay of Pigs doesn't do anything. So he's arguing that the CFR subverted the anti-Castro Bay of Pigs mongoose thing. (1961) McGeorge Bundy, Dean Rusk, Adlai Stevenson persuade Kennedy to cancel the rest of the planned airstrikes, and thus Cuba, nothing happens to Cuba. And it actually consolidates the Cuban tyrant's power. So basically it's just saying that the CFR guys are basically just helping Castro. 1961, as a result of Bay of Pigs, Kennedy fires Dulles and appoints John McCone, who's also CFR, as CIA director. Kennedy tells some close friends that he wants to splinter the CIA in 1,000 pieces. We all know about that event. Okay. 1962, a book comes out called The Fourth Floor by former U.S. ambassador to Cuba, Earl Smith, not a member of the CFR. Earl Smith writes how a group of State Department officials, particularly CFR people, conspired to bring Castro to power. 1962, General L.L. Lemnitzer proposes Northwoods, which we just talked about, right? Which would do a fake flag on Cuba. This would be a pretext to military operations in Cuba. Kennedy ignores the advice of the military officials and some of them CFR, refuses to seize this opportunity, does not want to get rid of Castro. This creates discomfort amongst the military. 1963, Kennedy signs executive order returning the U.S. Treasury, Federal Reserve stuff. So he thinks the Fed money printing had a role. 1963, whitewashing a commission was created to investigate JFK event. 4 members of this commission are Dulles McCloy, Gerald Ford, all these CFR goons, right? So it's not going to go anywhere. All right, 1964, moving up. 2 years after the Cuban Missile Crisis, Nelson Rockefeller, also a Trilateral Commission member, visits the Soviet Union. That hasn't been created yet, so I guess he's talking about in the future. Soviet Union, and has a secret meeting with Khrushchev. Interesting. October 15th, Rockefeller leaves the country. Khrushchev is deposed. 1964, Robert McNamara and Dean Rusk invent the Gulf of Tonkin incident. We know about that one, right? Vietnam. 1965, Dean Rusk, Robert McNamara, Henry Cabot Lodge. There's that audio recording of Henry Cabot Lodge basically saying that, no, we're not going to do what you say in Vietnam, JFK. So JFK wanted to end the Vietnam situation, and Henry Cabot Lodge is the one on the recording saying, no, we're not going to do what you say. We're going to do what we say. That's in the William Colby documentary made by Colby's son. In 1966, there was a speech given to close the Tricontinental Conference in Cuba. Castro proclaims a new Havana Declaration. The thesis of the declaration is a call for violent revolution. Wow. This is against Khrushchev's doctrine of peaceful coexistence. Interesting. 1967, the closing address, the first Latin American Conference on Solidarity. Castro says Cuba is a new internationalist foreign policy. So basically, he's just focused on Cuba for many, many years. Servando Gonzalez, 1968. Secret lecture on covert action at Pratt House with a bunch of CFR people. 1968, Richard Nixon and his National Security Advisor, Henry Kissinger, continue their treacherous policies. And this leads to the communists taking over South Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos. 1970, Z-Big enters the picture. Sit down and shut up. Z-Big writes Between Two Ages. The book becomes Brzezinski's sort of manual for technocracy, which gets him recruited into being the head of the Trilateral Commission. Exactly. 1970, Trilateral Commission is created for Z-Big to run and for globalization to succeed. America's manufacturing jobs must, number one, be sent abroad. Wages must decline. And this gets into all the stuff that's in the Sutton Patrick Wood book on trilaterals over Washington. CFR then realized that the war they created in Vietnam has become a liability. They used Daniel Ellsberg, who's also in the CFR, to bring the Pentagon Papers to the CFR-controlled New York Times. So it's a limited hangout. Publication of the Pentagon Papers basically creates anti-war feelings amongst the American population. 1974, Kissinger writes National Security Memorandum 200, the official public adoption of Malthusianism. You understand how important that is? Huge. Now, throughout the Nixon administration, they were already doing Malthusian types of things. And all of these elite were already Malthusian for a long time. Now it's like government dogma, you see. It dictates a genocidal policy of depop of other continents. It's not just other continents. The actual full Malthusian policies are dictated by the same people that want mass global depop. And it's Kissinger and the Harvard Project. They create Klaus and Davos and the Great Reset. Do you understand? It's the same people, dummies. 1975, more than 40,000 of Castro's troops invade Angola. And they guard the oil fields for frickin' David Rockefeller, dude. No wonder he was meeting with David Rockefeller at Pratt House. Other African countries fall under the control of Castro's troops in Ethiopia, Congo, and Bissau. Thousands of Africans lose their lives as a result of Castro. In 1975, the United States acknowledges for the first time the presence of Cuban troops in Angola. This is where it's getting spicy. This is the sassy, spicy part I was talking about. I was right. I remember this correctly. I have pretty good recall. Every now and then I get a little detail wrong, but no, it's, yeah. This is oil fields guarded by Castro for Standard Oil. Soon after this, U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Andrew Young of the CFR, declares Castro troops to be a stabilizing force in Africa. This is like old school AFRICOM stuff. 1976, January, during a short visit to Venezuela, Henry Kissinger tells President Carlos Perez in a private conversation, "Our intelligence services have grown so bad that we can only find out that Cubans are being sent to Angola after they're already there." 1976, CFR agents inside the State Department passed the Clark Amendment, named after Senator Dick Clark of the CFR. It forbids the U.S. from giving any help to Jonas Savimbi's UNITA group against Castro. They actually passed an amendment against fighting Castro. This is crazy. 1977, a few months after the Castroite troops gain control of Angola, the country becomes one of the main commercial partners in the U.S. in Africa. 95% of Angola's oil is exported. Exactly as I told you. Half of the production of the Gulf oil in Angola ends up in American refineries. And the consortium that De Beers controls of the blood diamonds. We gotta stop them blood diamonds. If we just send a bunch of troops down there, if we use Castro as our buddy, we can stop the blood diamonds. No, we gotta stop Coney. If we just send a bunch of American troops down there to stop Joseph Coney, we won't have blood diamonds. Child soldiers. Who believes this? People are so dumb to believe this stuff. Joseph Coney. Why are you gay? You are gay. Why are you fake and gay? Who says I am gay? You are gay. You are fake and gay. 1979. Fidel Castro gives a speech at the UN and calls for an NWO. Interesting. So the very thing that George W. Bush Sr. called for is the very thing that Fidel Castro calls for. 1979, following the advice of Zbigniew and Cyrus Vance of the CFR and Warren Christopher of the CFR and Jimmy Carter of the CFR, undermined the U.S. allies in Iran and Nicaragua. 1981, Reagan, not CFR. George Shultz, CFR. William Casey, CFR. Tradcat, CFR. Malcolm Baldrige, CFR. Arranged U.S. foreign aid to communist Romania. Ooh, I didn't know that. Tito? Was Tito there? No, not Tito. When did Ceausescu? Tito was Serbian. I don't even know about this one. When does Ceausescu fall? Nikolai. 89? So wait a minute. He's saying Reagan. No, he's saying, yeah. Foreign aid to Ceausescu and communist Poland and the USSR. I don't doubt this. It's just new to me. In 1981, Reagan, George Shultz, William Casey, Malcolm Baldrige arrange U.S. foreign aid to communist Romania, communist Poland, and the USSR. Maybe they probably saw that as a way to exert soft power, right? I mean, that's probably the most likely, right? Because U.S. aid that's sent everywhere. I don't mean U.S. aid, the humanitarian fake cover thing. I'm talking about U.S. monetary aid. That's what's used to buy off countries, basically. So that's probably what they were thinking. 1985, several Latin American countries default on their payments of interest on their debts to Wall Street banks. As a result, devastating economic crises result throughout Latin America. Castro says there should be a bailout. What? Dude, who knew that Castro... You thought the bankers were the ones behind bailouts. Dude, Castro was calling for bailouts. 1986, Bush Sr. authorized American companies to provide Saddam with samples of anthrax. Oh, you mean like what happened on the day of the Big Nine, which is admitted fake flag? Exactly. 1986. Oh, by the way, people don't know that. Well, I brought this up actually with a former military person, and they didn't know this. They were like, we supplied Saddam with chemical weapons. What? Yeah, that's what who do you think did that? Saddam. Foreign Policy Magazine. So, in other words, the establishment magazine is telling you this. There you go. It's in a bunch of... Saddam was trained by the CIA. People don't know this. Everybody remembers the picture of Donald Rumsfeld shaking hands with Saddam, right? And everybody was talking about this at the time. Well, why do you think that is? Because Saddam was trained by the CIA. Duh. It was an intelligence failure. It wasn't an intelligence failure. It was intentional. Let's see. 1980. This is interesting because he's got a few details in here I didn't remember and stuff that's new to me. 1985. Several Latin American countries default on their payments. No, we already did that. Let's see. 86. Culminating in a deal initiated by Jim McCall, CFR Trilateral member, President Bill Clinton, CFR Trilateral, gives North Korea $5 billion worth of oil. Now, this is part of the reason why I've said jokingly, tongue-in-cheek, half joking, half tongue-in-cheek, that North Korea is a fake and gray CIA state. Why did I say that? Well, a certain priest said that I think that it doesn't exist, which that's not what I said. But details like this is what I'm talking about. If these entities were real threats, Saddam is a real threat, then why did the West aid him, train him, and give him his chemical gases? If Kim Jong-un and Il were real threats, then why would old Bill Clinton I'm going to give him $5 billion. $5 billion. How dare you? Oh, but they're real threats. Sure. 1990, Atlantic Monthly article, 1990. The Roots of Muslim Rage. Bernard Lewis, the CFR, coins the term Clash of Civilizations. His understudy, Samuel P. Huntington, will write Clash of Civilizations. Bernard Lewis, like the British arch neocon. 1990, U.S. government incites Saddam and launches a military attack against... incited by the U.S. government, they get Saddam to go after Kuwait. That's what that article was just saying. Saddam was doing this. There's another article that talks about even NPR, dude. Look at this. Even NPR. Well, that's just talking about Iran, though. But so Saddam was like basically our proxy against Kuwait and Iran, right? This isn't even talking about Kuwait, but Saddam's attack, which was incited by the U.S., then gives W the pretext for the Gulf War. I mean, this is... And then we get W saying the very thing that Castro just said at the UN. New World Order. A new world order. 1990, during the recesses of the meetings of the World Economic Forum in Davos. Uh-oh, we're going back to some old school Davos, dude. 1990 Davos. Who even knows about 1990s Davos? That's old school. And who was there? Your old buddy Maurice Strong. The environmentalist Maurice Strong of the Club of Rome gave a speech at Klaus's Davos in 1990. And I was like, these people were doing speeches on this when what was I doing in 1990? I was playing basketball, thought I was going to be like Magic Johnson. And all I got, the only way I'm like Magic Johnson is all the AIDS I got stored up, dude. Just kidding. That's all I was thinking about in 1990 was, how am I going to hit these 3-pointers? But this is great. I'd love to see this. I'd love to see Maurice Strong's 1990 Davos World Economic Forum speech. He declares that the goal of his billionaire buddies is to collapse industrial civilization. Well, we got to find this. That's some spicy shit right there, baby. Maurice Strong, Davos, 1990. We'll never find that, will we? Oh, maybe it's this. Oh, 1990? No, I want his actual speech. That's Kyoto Protocols at his website. Interesting. Kyoto Protocols is what you hear Alex always talking about, which they were trying to push in the 1990s. That's what Alex is always referring to, right? The 1990 Rio Summit. By the way, I found all those online. They're still online at C-SPAN. But who wants to sit through freaking hours of that super boring stuff, right? 1990 Rio Summit. Yeah, here it is, right here. Look at this. It's like all of these. There's a ton of these.
Thank you to the cable and satellite companies.
That's the hearings about the Earth Summit. That's not the actual Earth Summit. I want to see the actual Earth Summit. This is the famous Bush speech that Alex is always referring to. And I think it relates to Maurice Strong's Kyoto Protocols, right? But I really want to find, this is it. But I really want to find Maurice Strong's 1990. That'd be crazy, wouldn't it?
This is C-SPAN 2 coverage.
Brazilians made a very special effort to accommodate so many heads of states and delegates and journalists and visitors, and they managed it flawlessly, and they managed it with grace and good humor. And we've had a very successful visit. We've signed a climate convention. We've asked others to join us in presenting action plans for the implementation of the climate convention.
So here you go, like all the way back to 1990, they were pushing this nonsense, like trying to get this pushed through as an actual austerity collapse the West plan. But we got to find this. I mean, this is because I want to see where Maurice. I don't doubt it, but I want to see the actual speech or document him saying that they want to collapse industrial civilization. Here, Strong gives his own depiction of a sustainable economy in a coming NWO. It actually looks like Cuba after 55 years of Castro. Fascinating. 1991 CFR annual report. Stage being set in Europe for a NWO. 1992 Earth Summit. Look at this. Is this the Rio one? What year is this? 90 or 92? Did it say? Anyway, basically the same shit. The head of the Earth Summit, Marie Strong, declares in Rio, that's it, there's only one hope for the planet, the collapse of industrial civilization. Now we got to find Marie Strong on here. I don't care about George W. Bush. Good grief. Oh, here we go. Look at this. See all. All right, here we go. This is getting good. There's Marie Strong right there. There's Dalai Lama. See what I was saying about... I found this years ago, and I was like, I'm not watching all freaking 50 videos of this shit for hours on end. All I want is Marie Strong talking. There he is right there with the white hair. Let's see if he pops up. That'd be an amazing clip to have of him saying that they want to collapse Western civilization, right? I mean, that's like, because you say that's the plan, and they're always like, that's a conspiracy. No, it's not, dude.
Areas where the culture is still being practiced. I had not attended.
Though this is
Here we go. Here he is. Let's see if we get him.
Thank you very much.
We may have it.
Thank you, Shizuyuki. Before I introduce our next panelist, I just want to say that if any of the U.S. delegation doubts the reality of global warming, they ought to be in this room today. And
Ted Turner, dude. We got all the luminaries. So we got billionaire Depop master Ted Turner in the house. Look at that. They were all there, weren't they? Now we see why Alex is always referencing this. This is a classic. But you got to dig to find this freaking thing.
my other two panelists here are welcome to take off their coats if they would like to. Otherwise, they'll be a lot lighter when this session is over than when they came in. Okay, the next member of the panel is Mr. Pedro Simoncini. He's an Argentinian lawyer. He started private television in Buenos Aires, Argentina in 1961.
Well, damn, he looks just like Maurice Strong. That's not Maurice Strong. But that's exactly what Maurice Strong looks like. Let's see. We got Ted Turner there, though. The billionaires are going to save the planet. Don't y'all believe it? Maybe I could just search for Maurice Strong on here. All right, let's try that. Oh, here we go. Earth Council of Canada. I want to see you at the Rio Summit, dude. This light that I bought just mysteriously suddenly turns white. I don't get it. Like after 2 hours of sitting in red light, it turns white. I don't want white. All right. Anyway, I guess I'm just going to have to rifle through all this to find Maurice Strong talking about collapsing civilization or whatever. But I feel like I'm really close. I can't stop because I feel like I'm really close to it. Kyoto, here we go. No, that's Al Gore. I don't know. See, I told you he looks just like that other dude, doesn't he? I thought for sure I found it. Earth Summit. Oh, here we go. Maybe it's right here.
If you are type
Do y'all,
and take
why y'all hate Earth?
check your feet and legs.
Do you hate Earth?
Things that I'm going to show you.
To address the conference. Mr. Strong,
Here we go.
the floor.
Oh, here we go. Finally.
Thank you, Mr. President, to Secretary General. And thank you all for that generous vote of confidence. You all deserve to share it, and particularly my colleagues in the Secretariat and the UN, and I'm grateful to you for it. Your Majesty, distinguished President of Portugal, Prime Minister of Norway, Prime Minister of Tuvalu, distinguished delegates and distinguished Brazilian leaders gathered here, and people on whose behalf we are gathered. May I first extend my warm congratulations to you, Mr. President, our fine unsaid people, our deep gratitude for the remarkable job so wholeheartedly in this. Today, Mr. President, Mr. Secretary General, the capital of our planet removes to this beautiful city of Rio de Janeiro. There surely could be no better place to hold this historic Earth Summit. This great country of Brazil, which takes pride in being part of the developing world, is in fact a universe in itself, rich in the resources with which nature has endowed it, and in the diversity, the vitality, the creativity, and the charm of its people. It is at the same time one of the leading industrial countries of the world, one of its most urbanized, and while containing some of its greatest frontier areas. The Eco Brazil exhibition in Sao Paulo to have now the task of erasing the barriers that have separated us in the past, to join in a new and positive and exciting and promising global partnership that will enable us to survive in a more secure and a more hospitable and a more promising world. The industrialized world.
So it turns out this talk is actually like an hour long, or at least 30 minutes before somebody else comes on. I'm not going to play his old boring ass talk. I'm going to the end to see if he says like, and so in summation, let's have an NWO.
Cannot escape its primary responsibility to lead the way in establishing this partnership and making it work. Up to now, the damage inflicted on our planet has been done largely inadvertently. We now know what we are doing. We know its effects. We have lost our innocence. It would be more than irresponsible to continue down this path. This conference will, in the final analysis, only meet the needs for which it was called and the hopes and the aspirations it has ignited throughout the world, if the decisions taken here give rise to real and fundamental changes in the underlying conditions that have produced the civilizational crisis we now confront. If the agreements reached here do not serve the common interests of the entire human family, if they are devoid of the means and the commitments required to implement them, if the world lapses back after Rio to business as usual, we will have missed a historic opportunity, one which may not recur in our times, if ever. We would thus bequeath to those who follow us a legacy of lost hopes and deepening despair. This we must not do.
Well, he's basically just saying that we got to have an NWO, and Western civilization has to change drastically. And so I would say, yeah, that's probably essentially what he's saying. I'd like to watch the whole speech, though, eventually. I put it in the chat if you want to hear his whole speech at the Rio Earth Summit. We'll move on from that, though. We're getting towards the end. CFR's annual report, blah, 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 NWO. Maurice Strong says that Rio de Janeiro, there needs to be NWO. Yep. 1993, CFR President Leslie Gelb describes the CFR. I don't know what that means. 1993, writing in the LA Times about U.S. Congress approval of NAFTA, Kissinger states that it will be a conventional agreement. It will not be conventional, but is the architecture of a new international system, the first steps towards an NWO. 1993 summer issue of Foreign Affairs publishes Samuel P. Huntington, author of Clash of Civilizations, warning about the coming clash and the Christian clash with Islam, 1993, before any of the Big Nine events. Interesting. How did they know in 1993 that there would be the top neocons in the world? How do they know there would be a clash with Islam? 1996, the threat of Islamic fundamentalism is on the table at Davos. Davos 1996. Look at that.
You're going to get ready for the Muslims, for the Al-Qaeda. There will be the attack.
Could you imagine Klaus talking about Al-Qaeda? The Al-Qaeda are going to attack us. 1997, Z Big says in the Grand Chessboard that there is a coming global terrorist threat.
There will be the terrorists.
And Z-Big also said that there would be a coming Pearly Harbor event in Grand Chessboard. We've covered that many, many times. Then we get the neocons writing the PNAC document. We're not going to rehearse that. If you don't know what PNAC is, you're way late to the game. Go brush up. 1999, Kissinger arranged for the Panama Canal to be given away. And they give $400 million to the Chinese government to take it. I didn't know that. Kissinger in 1999 gives the Panama Canal to China? Huh. Does China still own the Panama Canal? Does anybody know? 1999, President Bill Clinton. The supporters, Secretary of State Madeleine Albright, General Wesley Clark, NATO, war with invade Kosovo. We know about all that. And they used their fake CIA-created group, the KLA, which was a Marxist radical Islamic terrorist group. 100% fake created group. You can read Secret Affairs by Mark Curtis. I've read the entire 500-page book. There's entire sections on the KLA. Mark Curtis is a Royal Institute for International Affairs researcher. He's not a conspiracy man. 2001, Wall Street. Bankers. Dave Rockefeller. Go to Cuba? This is getting crazy, dude. Private meetings with Fidel. I didn't know that. I read Servando's book like 7 years ago. I'd forgotten this. After the meeting, CFR Director Peter Peterson makes a comment to the press in which he says that Castro fights for the education and public health of Cuba. Cuba is one of the best educated countries in the Western Hemisphere. Well, CFR loves Castro. That's becoming more and more evident here. 2001 CFR Study Commission produced a report titled U.S.-Cuba Relations. The document is a frenzied, desperate attempt to save the collapsing Castro regime and to maintain Castroism after Castro. It is approved despite many complaints. 2001, World Bank President James Wolfenson of the CFR visits Cuba along with General Kofi Annan of the United Nations Secretary General. They express their conviction that Castro and Cuba are great. So basically, he's a CFR establishment communist that the world communists want to emulate. Much like David Rockefeller said, Maoism should be emulated everywhere. Big 9 event, W. I have no idea that there would be such events occurring, even though they were running drills that very day about it. Let's see. 2002, W and Kissinger chair a commission to investigate detect terror events. Kissinger declines this. Bush creates a new commission with Thomas Keane and Lee Hamilton. The commission produces this is a 9/11 commission, I guess. Yeah, because Keane was on the 9/11 commission. Thanks to new NAFTA, which, by the way, didn't Keane say it was a joke, a whitewash? The guy who ran the commission said it was a whitewash. Let's see. Thanks to the new NAFTA agreement, transnational agribusiness Archer Daniels Midland, which is a CFR corporation, exports to Mexico 6 million tons of corn. That's GMO. This is unfair competition that throws thousands of Mexican small farmers into poverty. 2002, Ben Bernanke, President of the Federal Reserve, admits that, oh wow, I didn't know that. Bernanke admitted that the Great Depression was created by the bank elites. Bernanke admitted that the Federal Reserve that's crazy. Have y'all ever heard that? I didn't know that. I guess he's an evil conspiracy theorist then. Under false pretenses, W orders the invasion of Iraq. Should invade Iraq. Kissinger's protege, Paul Bremer, is appointed to the first colonial administrator of the country of Iraq, then closely following Korea and Vietnam. Bush draws up the rules, tying American soldiers' hands in their backs. Draws up rules that basically lead to a quagmire. Iraq then becomes a Vietnam-style quagmire. 2004, Venezuela calls for referendum to recall Hugo Chavez. Ex-President Jimmy Carter offers to help oversee the voting. Despite widespread cheating, Carter gives his approval to the election, legitimizing Hugo Chavez. I didn't know that. That's crazy. These are like great examples of showing the fakeness of like communism, right? Like we're really worried about communism and socialism when these elites literally all love communism and socialism. And they love monopoly capitalism too. They're basically the same thing. Just think of it as control structure, like a top down. It's basically communism or socialism is basically just the government becoming one giant corporation that runs everything. That's it. It's still corporatism. It's no different. Cause like free markets and whatever. Whatever. 2004, the Venezuelan people. Oh, we already read that. 2004, W opens the southern border. Yep. So that's an old W strategy. Well, it's a CFR strategy from a long time ago, but the reason that the rhinos do it is just like here's the odd part. Our odd part was that, do you remember in the 90s and the 2000s, the Republicans were wanting open borders, and it was the Democrats that were bitching about open borders. Isn't that crazy? And people have played the speeches of Clinton and Obama, even, I think, and older Democrats, like 80s Democrats, all bitching about, if we open these borders for these corporations, these giant corporations benefit, it hurts the American worker. And now all the Democrats are like, we need open borders because we love the immigrants and the people. You hate people. You literally worship corporations, all you stupid Democrats. They worship at the altar of the Fortune 100. Crazy level. Idiots. Oh, yeah. Remember all that 2000? I was starting to listen to Lord Voldemort in 2003, 4, 5. And Alex was always talking about Vicente Fox and the deals that were being made with Bush and Vicente Fox. And they wanted to have that Texas corridor. Remember that? Even Ron Paul used to talk about that. Well, they want to have a NAFTA corridor. Well, it's going to be bad. Remember that? I mean, I've been listening to Lord Voldemort since 2003, bro. And he was bitching about Vincent. Y'all don't even remember Vicente Fox, do you? I do. So what Servando's talking about is Vicente Fox wanting open borders as well. Because he was like, the Bush and them were making this deal. And Alex was going crazy about it. That's what this 2004 thing is here. So it's a CFR plot, exactly. 2005, leaders of the government of Mexico, Canada, United States. Oh, this is old school, Alex, bro. You remember this?
Unbelievable. Security Prosperity Partnership North America. Folks, unbelievable. We have got to stop. Call your senators right now. The SPP. Folks, unbelievable. SPP.
Alex is always going crazy about the SPP. Y'all remember this? Am I the only one that remembers this from old school Voldemort days? Bro, I've been in this game for 20 years, dog. 20. I forgot to tell y'all. Tonight, this is my 20-year anniversary. Now, I knew about the NWO in 1998. But I didn't know about all of this kind of stuff. This was like way over my head in 1998. I was an idiot 18-year-old reading my freaking John Hagee study Bible. Yes, I had a John Hagee study Bible when I was 18.
The Blood Moons of Israel.
See, we got a couple people in the chat that remember this old school Alex stuff. Do you remember? So Alex would go on Austin Access, and then he would upload the file, the Windows Media file, to Prison Planet. I had a membership. And then every night I would come and download that Windows Media file. I wore my Windows Media file player out with Alex clips from Austin Access. And I remember Alex going, I mean, do you remember he used to have Sully Castillo on, who was the former DEA border agent that was talking about all the corruption? Remember all that? And then something bad happened to that dude. Remember him? I totally forgot the SPP, but this is old school Alex right here. 2005, CFR Commission. Blah, blah, blah. Produces a document called Building a North American Community. So they really wanted this. That's why they're doing it now, isn't it? So the open BORDER stuff right now, they were really pushing this then under Bush. And the idea was a NAU, North American Union, and they had the Trans-Texas Corridor. They were going to have a corridor that went from Mexico to Texas to Canada. Remember that? Y'all remember those days? Old school. The Iraqi Study Group, 2006, co-chaired by James Baker. Former Congressman Lee Hamilton has created all these CFR people. Its purpose is to conduct a forward-looking assessment of the situation in Iraq. Other members of the Iraqi study group. I remember people talking about the Iraqi study group, but I didn't understand what it was, what the purpose of it was. The situation on the ground, I still don't get what the purpose of this was. It appoints Robert Gates to substitute Donald Rumsfeld as Secretary of Defense. Blah, blah, blah. Iraqi study group. Okay, what is this? What does it do? 2007, CFR sponsors an online debate between Michael Levy and Graham Howe, two CFR people, to discuss the possibility of devices going pop in America. Interesting. That's probably just to scare people. 2008, Z-Big, Barack Obama comes to the fore. Hope and change. Hope and change. We need a civilian security force just as big, just as strong. My wife, Michelle. 2009, Senator John Rockefeller, Olympia Snow introduced the Cybersecurity Act of 2009, which gives the president control over the internet. Oh, that is how Obama then gave the UN control over ICANN, isn't it? So in other words, this happens to prepare for Obama giving ICANN to UN. This is a bunch of old school stuff I forgot about. 2010, some of the most notorious members of the Billionaire Club. They meet the Good Club. Remember that? Has everybody forgotten the Good Club? And they meet to decide how to get rid of the peeps. We've got to get rid of y'all peeps. The Good Club. People don't even remember it's called the Good Club. Yep. They're called the Good Club. They want to save the world. Why do you hate the world? They're philanthropists. The most elite club in the world. Ordinary people need not apply. A global Good Club is the name for the tiny global elite billionaire philanthropists who want to save the planet. Gil Bates, George Soros, Warren Buffett, Oprah Winfrey, Dave Rockefeller, Ted Turner, Eli and Edith Broad. I don't know who that is. Altogether, they're worth $125 billion. The meeting, which was called by Gil Bates, Warren Buffett, and Dave Rockefeller, was held in response to environmental crises. Oh, what year was this? 14 years ago. I remember when Alex covered this at the time. Well, it's so great that Gil Bates was there calling attention to environmental crises 14 years ago. And he's there at the forefront of the last 3 years environmental crisis. Nothing sus there at all. It's all on the up and up. For 6 hours, they assembled to discuss how to depop. Bill Gates said that he describes his work as philanthrocapitalism. Who believes this? I guess normies believe this stuff. I can't imagine believing this, but this is like conspiracy 101, right? And I meet people all the time that I've talked to people who think this doesn't exist. If you talk about the Good Club, they're like, that doesn't exist. That's not a thing. That never happened. And then when you show them the article, they go, well, they're just trying to help everybody. Okay. Goodbye. We're done. No more talking to you. Waste of time. 2010. Between 12 and 30 Reconquistas, La Raza. Ooh, interesting. Servando says that the founder of La Raza or La Mecha is a secret CFR agent. Interesting. 2010, Bieberg meets in Spain. And they're all from CFR. Yeah, we know that. Well, look at that. 2010, Gil Bates Foundation gives $6.5 million to La Raza. This is so crazy, man. Anyway, so Servando's book came out, I guess, in 2010. So this is his sort of, chronology of goons of the last 100 years. So the chronology of goonery. By the way, guys, if you want to beef up, I know we need more. We got one beefcake right here. Look at that. Beefcakes, right? And by the way, we're getting there. We're getting there. We're getting there. We're not there yet, but we're getting there, right? You want to beef up? How are we getting there? Chalk.com. Head on over to chalk.com, the best place on the internet, period, for real, organic adaptogens, legit health, legit supplementation, not a bunch of nonsense, not a bunch of fakery, but real organic supplementation. Chalk.com. The 7 wonders right there, that's the 7 best mushrooms that can make up for mineral deficiencies. The nutrients that we don't get, the 7 wonders offers that for you. But it's not just 7 wonders. If you head on over to chalk.com right now, you'll see what they call stacks. And that's just the recommended experiments that you can do if you're a lady or a man. And there's only 2. Over at Chalk, we recognize that there's men and there's women. And you'll notice that the stack there recommends the Tomcat Elite, which is proven in peer-reviewed studies that you can read at Chalk to boost testosterone. There's also the Daily, another way to make up for the lack of nutrients in our diet. There's also the Ashwagandha, great for mental focus, clarity, all of that. And if you're a dude, that's probably the stack that you want to check out. If you use the promo code J50, you don't pay that $133. You pay 50% off of that. Huge discounts because Chalk is a big believer in the work that I do. They've been our sponsor for almost 2 years now. And then if you're a lady, head on over to the Female Vitality Stack, and you can get a hold of the Shilajit, the Irish Moss, and the Ashwagandha. Jamie takes those on the regular. She really likes the Shilajit for mental focus and clarity when it comes to reading and research. There's also other offers as well. Chalk Minerals, if you're just looking for the straight up, mineral deficiencies that we have in our diet, you want to treat that. You want to go for that. If you want to focus on testosterone, head on over there to the Tomcat Elite tab right there, and you can get you some big old horse pills of Chalk, baby. That's my favorite. Now, that promo code, as we said, is J50. That's JAY50 to get 50% off. But also, if you want recurring subscriptions, you can use the promo code J53LIFE. That's J53LIFE to get 53% off. And you'll get that Chalk coming every month. So pick out what works best for you. Support your health and support me by heading over to chalk.com. All right, let's get to some of these interesting, beautiful super chats. DC Woodworking, $3. Keep up the great work. Hey, bro, thank you so much. Much appreciated. And I think Travis said last time, I might have missed this when he said $20. Live to Dyer another day. There were some really good ones from our James Bond podcast. If you missed the James Bond podcast, be sure and go watch it. It was a lot of fun. And we actually decode and get into some pretty deep stuff in the mom bonds. You know what I'm talking about? Mom bonds? What are you talking about? I'm talking about Pierce Brosnan, dude. There's no other mom bond. I mean, maybe a mom from the 80s might think Timothy Dalton is a mom bond, but we all know we're talking about Pierce, right? We're talking about Pierce Brosnan. And we got pretty deep into the symbolism, into the geopolitics, intrigue, and espionage, the real stories there behind those crazy movies. Go watch the Bond podcast if you missed it. Live to Dyer another day. No time to Dyer. Those were some great ideas. Kristen, $9.11. Happy conspiracy holiday. Thank you, Kristen. Much appreciated. Dame Piglet, $3. Just chipping in, dog. Thank you so much. Rachel Wilson. Shout out to Rachel. I am a history nerd. Your history content is some of my favorite. Hey, there we go. We need more history buffs over here who don't just... A lot of boomers, they love that normie history, right? And they're all talking about a bunch of boring... No, this is real history over here, right? We love the content that you do. We thank you. We support your boy, Jay Dyer. Thank you so much, Rachel. Be sure to support Rachel Wilson, everybody, over on her channel as well. Dame Piglet. No, we already did that. Again, just chipping in $3. Travis, $50. Can we get an impression of Philip Seymour Hoffman interrogating Matthew McConaughey over the rabbit's foot? Well, since you gave $50, I guess I got to. Give me the rabbit's foot. Give me the rabbit's foot now. You know, wife, daughter, girlfriend. I'm going to find her. I'm going to hurt her. Give me the rabbit's foot. Well, you know, things with the rabbit's foot is like, I might have got one at like a carnival or something one time, and you know, maybe I was a little high. I don't remember. Maybe I just stuffed it somewhere. Maybe I put it somewhere. I don't remember where it is. You know, it's a rabbit's foot. You know, it's soft. It's prickly. You know, it's all those things at once. You know, maybe I just maybe I put it inside of my Lincoln in the driver's seat. Maybe I put it under the. Give me a rabbit's foot now. Give me a rabbit's foot now, McConaughey. I'm gonna hurt you. I'm gonna kill you. How's that? I'm a little tired, so I apologize. I wasn't. My creativity is a little off because I'm tired. Justin MF, $9.11. Thank you so much. Alula, $5. It's always great to catch a stream. I heard Clubhouse is a good place to find debates. I tried Clubhouse for a couple months, and it was super annoying. Actually, TikTok is better than... I mean, if you want feral, insane debates, and you want to grow your channel, TikTok's better for that, believe it or not. It's better than Clubhouse. Now, the quality of the people is just insanely low tier on TikTok, but it will be better for finding sparring partners, but it would make for good content. Yeah, I just didn't have a good experience with Clubhouse. I tried it for a couple months. It was kind of lame. But Twitter Spaces, Discord, audio, TikTok, you can't beat those for crazy debates. Flip Phone Santana, $5. Jay, how are you? I was wondering, are you aware that Dr. Malpass did a critique of you on his website? Yes, I saw that a long time ago. In a transcendental argument for the law of non-contradiction, part 1 and 2, do you have a response to that paper? Now, I think that a long time ago, Father Deacon Dr. Ananias was going to do a response, and then I think he got busy. But if I remember, Malpass was saying stuff like, he was basically replying to Bonson. Like he was replying to a bunch of Bonson arguments, but I don't make a lot of those Bonson arguments that he was making. Like he was saying that, well, how do we, like Bonson has this argument about something to do with basketball players and who's the best basketball player, and I just didn't think it was very convincing. Jim Lamana, $25. Love the content. Thank you. Thank you, Jim. Much appreciated. That's a nice fat super chat. Frankie V, $5. Do you believe that big events 9 Koof demoralize us? Absolutely. Yeah. Can they do something so terrible and get away with it? Well, yeah. I mean, the same people doing this plan wars. I mean, they plan and support abortion. You don't think they're going to plan and support something like a fake flag? Of course. Most people cannot get over that there are wicked people that would do this. Well, yeah, that's part of the reason why people get away with it. They wouldn't do that. They love me. Yeah, they love you. Do you have any thoughts or solutions? I mean, we talk about that a lot over here. You know, I mean, we're not going to fix the government. You might as well just move out of big cities and get a farm. I mean, that's the best hope at this point. Humper Biden, become Orthodox. Humper Biden, $10. Thank you for all the knowledge and humor. Thank you, Humper Biden. Oh, instead of Hunter. Thank you for that. Flip Phone Santana. Jay, how was your day? We already did that. Did you send that twice? Or did I'm confused. Maybe I scrolled up too far. Stonewill96, $15 says nothing. Thank you so much, Stonewill. Kevin Farrell, $10. Thank you so much. Costy, $20. Covering these subjects is some of your best work. Thank you. I've read a lot of books over the years. And try to distill the information. There's so much information that, it kind of gets forgotten. Like, I mean, I haven't thought about the frickin' Security and Prosperity Partnership Agreement I haven't thought about that in probably 15 years. You know what I mean? So a lot of this stuff I don't remember. It's just masses of information that you got to kind of keep up with and collate if you can. Right? What would Webster Tarpley and Eric Ibarra sound like in a debate on the papacy? Mr. Ibarra, unbelievable the deception involved in Eric Ibarra when he talks about the papacy, which is a giant derivatives bubble. In fact, Mr. Ibarra himself is shaped as a bubble. If we poke him, he will pop. Now, Webster, hold on there. There's no need to make fun of me as if I am a internet cartoon strip. This is uncharitable. How's that? Silverstein, $5. Did Russ Bridger run into... what did Russ Bridger run into about Pearly Harbor? Was he popped? That is what one researcher thinks. I bought Russ Bridger's book on British intelligence and saying that it's a scam, but I've not read the Pearly Harbor book. But very plausible, but I don't know the story. But that's one theory. Bond Jovi, 1912, $20. Thank you so much. Travis, $10. I ordered a copy of the book. Do you mean the Servando Gonzalez book? We like the information dense streams. Good. I mean, I like these too, but I gotta vary it. You know what I mean? I gotta do different. So I can't just do one thing. It drives me nuts. So I forgot to mention Jessica Lynch. Remember this story? How fake all that is? That was a whole fake thing. We didn't get to that tonight. I've covered that many times, though. Infallible Whiteboard, $15. Jay, there's a new BBC documentary on Tate. According to them, Andrew Tate is the frontman puppet leader of a Gnostic seduction cult run by former Bhagwan member Miles Sonkin. I don't know. I've never heard of Miles Sonkin. I did think that they're, what's his name, Iggy? the world's greatest German hypnotist, Iggy. That was pretty wild. But I've not seen the BBC documentary. I'll have to check that out. But you're saying that the real leader of both the Tates is a former Osho person? I've not heard that. That's pretty wild. Alula, $7. This is one of the favorite streams you've done. Now, we've done a bunch of streams like this, so thank you. I'm curious why this one is the favorite. Now, I've done basically almost identical streams to this on Rockfin 3 years ago. So if you missed all of these types, if you want more of these, go to my Rockfin. By the way, I shared the ones that I did on Rockfin on the Big 9 event today on Twitter. So if you're like, where are these? Well, sometimes it's hard to find the old stuff on Rockfin because they don't have the search feature works, but it's like, if y'all don't know what I titled it, you wouldn't know what to search. But if you want to watch the older episodes of this, on one of these lectures I did, I actually went through a bunch of the old History Commons articles. And is when I found it on this one here, Big 9 event. See this? So go to my Twitter. By the way, if you're not following me on Twitter, you should. Right there. So if you like this talk, there's another one just like it right there. And then there's another one like that, like these right here. So two different ones. I don't remember which one's first. Big 9 event decoded and Big 9 event symbolism. Two different talks, much like this one. Go watch those over on Rockfin. If you're not a subscriber to my Rockfin, please go subscribe on Rockfin. It is free, but there's also paid content as well. You can also subscribe to the website. There's the link for this event, this talk. And then here's the link for the other one. Now, all of these cover different material. but they're like this talk, is what I'm trying to say. Tinfoil Hat Girl, $20. Thank you for the great article that Orthodox had a lot of great content. Yes, and I don't know this person. I don't know who that guy is or any of his views. It's only cited as a reference. Okay, so I'm not saying that everything he says is right. He's just a historian guy, and he's trying to have a fair and balanced thing. It's very critical of the EP overall, mainly critical of the EP. It's this very long article here, which I recommend, on the history of geopolitical and intelligence agency influence in orthodoxy. It's that article there. I'm not agreeing with everything he says, just saying it's a good overview of history. I don't know who Matthew Nami is, but it's a decent article. And overall, he's mainly very critical of Bartholomew. Rami, $5. Happy anniversary, informative stream. Yeah, basically 20 years of, what would I call it? I mean, I knew about the NWO in 1998. I knew about the UN being a Marxist thing. I knew about New Age cults being part of a push for a one world order. But 2003 is when I first saw Lord Voldemort. And believe it or not, I first saw him on a website. It was actually on Novus Ordo Watch, which is funny because Novus Ordo Watch, I've actually tried to get them to debate multiple times and they blocked me, right? So they just ended up blocking me. But in 2003, when I was a trad cat, I was reading Novus Ordo Watch all the time, and they put up links to Lord Voldemort talking about, guess what? Skull and Bones. Right around that same time, I saw Dark Secrets Inside Bohemian Grove. Then I saw Burmes's Loose Change. So 2003 is really when I already knew about NWO. I knew about Masons being bad news. I knew about, but I didn't know what a fake flag was. So 2003 is when I learned what a fake flag is. So this is 20 years of that stuff. So it's been an interesting journey. It is very crazy, number one, to host the 4th hour of that show for the last 2.5, almost 3 years. Never would have dreamed that that would happen. It is crazy to have met all these people. You know, from being a random internet viewer. Remember Google Video? Viewing Google Video back in 2005, 4, 5. I remember Google Video when it first came out. It was all just conspiracy documentaries. That was all. That was the only thing on there. You can go to Google Video. This is pre-YouTube, and it was all just conspiracy stuff. And it was a lot of, really dumb, goofy stuff. Some good stuff, but a lot of goofy stuff. Remember all the Prophecy Club stuff? Bell Schnabbelin. The Illuminati, a Bell Schnabbelin. And Fritz Springmeier's videos were on there. Remember that? The Illuminati. The mind control of the Illuminati. Cisco Wheeler. No, people don't even know Bill Schneebelin is. They won't even get that impression. My Bill Schneebelin is pretty good, actually. I wonder if he's still... If I could find that. Let's see if those old talks are on here. And he gave this talk about... This is it. Vampires. The Illuminati.
What if you could...
The Bill Schneebelin, the Illuminati. Let's see if we can...
Catholic grade school, high school, the whole bit. Went to a Catholic college while I was there.
That's not it. I want his Illuminati. This is it. The Illuminati talk. Here we go. This is what was on Google Video, dude, back in the day. This right here. It's still over here. So when you go to Google Video, it's like basically Fritz Springmeier, Bill Schneblin, all the Prophecy Club documentaries.
Taken down and introduced to in a church down in Chicago, which was wholly given over to this vampiric cult. And I was made to drink the blood of what I now believe to be a fallen angel.
The Lobarati. Anyway, so that was Google Video back in 2004, 5, and 6. And the Lobarati. It's been a long, crazy journey, hasn't it? So anyway, y'all don't want to hear me reflecting on 20 years of this stuff, but the craziest part is seeing it all come to fruition in the world. That's the craziest part. And everybody in our audience, all you guys, unless you're over age 30 or more, right? Only the old school people know what it was like being a super, conspiracy-minded person in 2003. Because nobody else, everybody thought you were crazy. And it was like nobody was into this except for a few internet nerds. Right? 20 years ago. 20 years of this. Anyway, let's get this stuff off of here. So it's a lot easier to find camaraderie in people who are like-minded because so many more people are awake. But 20 years ago, nobody was awake. It was so crazy. It was so different. Irina, $50. God bless you. Thank you, Irina. So Irina and Travis with the biggest, fattest super chats tonight. Thank you so much. Really honored to have you guys be so generous. Much appreciated. Turtle items, $1. What is the Orthodox interpretation of the Bible when it refers to the elect? There is a corporate election. Everybody baptized into the church is the corporate body of the elect. That's why Paul in Ephesians writes to a visible corporate body of people at Ephesus known as the Church of Ephesus and says, you all are the predestined, the elect. So we don't primarily think of it as an individual thing. Certainly God knows from all eternity who the elect are. But we don't think that God intentionally causes people to sin or to be damned or anything like that. So we don't know God's decree and who, or God's omniscience. We don't know who will persevere. Those things are known to God. But what we know is the visible public confession that everybody baptized is the elect. All right. If you would hit like and share, everybody have a good night. A lot of fun tonight.